We talked to former Democratic State Representative Jack Franks, who is the current chairman of the board for McHenry County. We asked Mr. Franks about his fiscally conservative approach to managing the county's budget and the successes he's seen so far.
Jack Franks, thanks for joining us again on the Illinois Channel. Welcome back. You were a longtime member of the House Democratic Caucus, and now you're the chairman of the board of McHenry County. How are things in McHenry County? What is your experience going from being a House member to being an executive who is managing the budget in a small way, I guess, like the governor would?
Well, I try to reject the politics of Springfield and Washington, quite frankly, because it's so dysfunctional. In McHenry County, I'm a Democrat, and there are 23 Republicans on the board and 1 Democrat. So we work very well together, and we had some significant victories this year. And we were trying to be collaborative. And I brought everybody in, and my style was to all work together. And as a result, we set a goal of reducing our property tax levy by at least 10%. And I campaigned on that when I won. And this year, with the board's help, we were able to cut 11.2% of our property tax levy. That's unheard of in the state of Illinois. But we needed to do that to show our citizens that government can work for them, because it's gotten out of control in this state. Our property taxes are too high. Springfield just increased our income taxes. It's a big problem, and we're losing population. And I wanted to show that government can work again in Illinois, and it's a microcosm. You know, we're a pretty big county. We're the 5th largest county in the state of Illinois, but we're getting things done.
How did you do it, and could other counties do it? Could the state use what you're doing, or would it not be applicable to state government?
No, it's applicable everywhere. You just go to zero-based budgeting. You get a new set of eyes, and you challenge the status quo. And what I saw was we've been overtaxing our citizens for a very long time. I looked at how a businessman would approach a budget, and I changed our payment cycle. Instead of having 6 months of reserve, I moved it down to 5. So as a result, I freed up enough money to do our capital projects without having to tax for them. Simple things like that. I looked at some line items where we had surpluses. I didn't need to levy for them for a while. And I'm looking at right now, we have one item with a $43 million surplus, and I'm looking to rebate more than half of that to our citizens. So not only are we cutting the levy, I'm going to give them some money back. And we can do that in the state if we just roll up our sleeves and work together and reject the status quo. Because you know what I did? I banned in my offices the phrase, "we've always done it this way." I said, just because you've always done it wrong doesn't mean I'm going to continue that. So throw away all our preconceived notions, look at it differently, and work together for a change. So I'm happy to show others how it can be done, because I know it can be done. We are a success story in McHenry County. And now I put on the ballot in March a referendum to ask our school districts to also reduce their property tax levy by at least 10%. We have got to change our structure of our government.
Anyone who's lived in Illinois and is a homeowner, or property owner, I should say, knows that property taxes are what's crushing people, crushing the economy. And so obviously this is, even with the race certainly on right now the Republican side, a main topic with Jeannie Ives versus the governor. But you were saying you made these changes without having to lay off any staff, or without having to cut services.
Right, we were able to do it. Nothing was changed. You're not going to see any difference, except the fact that you're going to keep more money in your pocket. Government is bloated, it's inefficient, and it's designed that way. There's really no incentive to be efficient whatsoever in our governments, and that's the problem. And that's the problem. We have automatic escalators, at least in the collar counties, with your property taxes. It goes up 5%, or the consumer price index, whichever is less, automatically. And most of the governments are taking that. I reject that type of thinking. I think we ought to be reducing our taxes because we are bloated. And by me, well, not me, by us cutting the budget and showing that it can be done, I think every other government in the state of Illinois can follow our lead.
One of the things Jeannie Ives, and I don't know if you have an opinion on this or not, she's not the only one, but she's making the point that our assessments are just wrong.
They are.
Our property assessments. I was going to say, having been in the legislature and now doing what you're doing, how much of a factor is that, and is that something that we should all pay more attention to?
Absolutely. It's not an insignificant amount. And you see what happens, for instance, in the city of Chicago with their commercial stuff. it's a big problem because we're all paying for that. And I can tell you, I'll use McHenry County as an example. We pay some of the highest property taxes in the entire country. We're higher than 99.99% of all Americans. And if you have a house that's worth about $220,000 in Woodstock, Illinois, you're going to be paying over $10,000 a year in property taxes. And now with the new federal law that caps the amount that you can write off on your federal taxes, we're getting a double whammy. So high property taxes, and we can't write it off, and we're losing population. This state is hemorrhaging. Folks, they are fleeing because of this issue. If we do not solve our property tax problem, our state will never realize its full potential. It is the most pressing issue facing our citizens, and that's why I'm laser focused on it. And I think Jeannie's right to focus on that as well.
This may be an unfair question. Is there taking your savings that you achieved and applying it to the average homeowner, is there a number, just as a point of illustration, that you could say, Joe used to pay $10,000 and now he's paying $9,500 or $8,000 or whatever?
Well, it's not a huge amount of money because the county only accounts for about 10% of your property taxes where we're at. It's our schools and frankly what happens under this dome, how the state funds our public education. Because our property taxes show that about 70% of them go to fund our schools. So until the state of Illinois fairly funds our education, we're always going to have this problem. But having said that, the state ought to be incentivizing these school districts to consolidate. We have way too many school districts. I believe we should have one for my county, for instance, because it's very...
How many do you have?
At least, I think, 18 of them. Some of them are single-member districts. In the town where I live, Marengo, it's
by single member, you mean they have one school?
One school for 300 kids.
But then every district has a superintendent, and they're probably making six figures, right?
Absolutely, and they've got their own lawyers and their own accountants and their own purchasing. We ought to be doing this together. You know, we should get all these school districts together to have one purchasing director, one accountant, one law firm. It's crazy with the kind of money they're spending and all these additional deans. You see the administrative costs are increasing while our population of our students is decreasing. That is unsustainable and it must stop, and we have to change that to school districts.
Last question, if some county executives or others hear this and they want to get a hold of you, are you interested in talking to them?
Every one of them, absolutely. Call me at home, call me on my cell. Listen, we're all in this together, and we can do it if we work together. And I think McHenry County's been able to prove that. And I'm very proud of what we've done, and we're going to keep doing more. We're going to be very creative. And one of the things I didn't tell you is I just passed something, our board, to change our pension system to allow full-time elected officials like myself countywide to not be part of IMRF and instead have a 401k type of thing, which will save millions of dollars for our taxpayers. So now we've done that, and I'm going to pressure all of our countywide officials not to get into the pension system in order to save our citizens some money. Because guys like me who get elected for 4-year terms, it's not like I'm working 20 years on the roads and that's my job. No, I'm an elected official, and I know I've got a 4-year term. I shouldn't have an expectation in a pension. So we have to change that mindset as well.
Let me say, while we are standing here, we're going to have the State of the State delivered shortly. Frankly, this is probably more pomp and circumstance than substance typically. I don't know why we don't combine it with the budget. But because we had gone so long without a state budget, did that have much of an impact in your area? And I'm kind of curious about what it's having. I know it's decimated some of the college towns.
Yes, it's been devastating. The General Assembly and the governor's inability to come together has grievously injured our counties and our towns. Our social service agencies have been decimated. You're seeing them consolidate and close, and our people aren't getting the services that they need. And the dysfunction has a real price. And there is a tax that every one of us pay for the dysfunction down here, and people are mad, and they have a right to be. These guys need to do better in Springfield.
One last question. We brought up Jeannie Ives and the property taxes on the Democratic side. A number of I think maybe all the candidates are for changing Illinois' flat tax to a progressive income tax. What are your thoughts on that?
I understand why they want to do it. I'm not a supporter of that. I think government has too much money right now. I don't trust them with our money. I think they can do a better job. I think I've shown that we can do that in McHenry County. And before I would look for more revenue from our hardworking citizens who are already overtaxed, I'd look at ways like we've done to be more creative, to cut the levy and cut the taxes, because our folks just can't take any more.
Jack Franks, thanks for joining us.
Thanks.